Welcome to the latest episode of the What You Need to H2Know podcast, where we feature the people, places, and projects in Ontario's water community. I'm Michelle Grenier, the Executive Director of the Ontario Waterworks Association, and I'm excited to kick off our journey by introducing you to one of our newer industry leaders. Today we have a special guest, Courtney Offet, a SCADA Technologist from the Town of Orangeville and a current member of the OWWA Automation Committee. In this episode, we'll explore Courtney's journey from academia to industry, learning more about how she discovered her passion for SCADA technology and automation, the educational experiences that prepared her to enter the field, and what led her to pursue a career in water and wastewater management. To wrap things up, we also have a few fun questions. So whether you're tuning in from the office, on your commute, or out in the field, sit back and get ready to hear from a fresh mind in the industry. Let's dive in. First off, Courtney, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Great. And can you tell our listeners a little bit more about yourself before we dive into some of the questions?
Yes, of course. So I'm Courtney Offet. I'm the SCADA Technologist for the Town of Orangeville. I enjoy being busy, so a little bit more about me. I also am a coach at Orange Theory Fitness part-time, and I run a social media account for a small local boutique in Orangeville. So ultimately, I love being busy. I like to golf, curl, and I love to read. So I recently acquired my MBA last year as well. So a goal of mine is to start a little small business, probably a local one day in Orangeville. But as you know, I'm busy and I like to delve into different avenues. So I have to hone in on one thing if I want to start something. But for now, being in my position and being in the automation industry of water wastewater has really kept me entertained. And it's really nice to keep up to date with the tech and the new up and coming stuff in the industry. So I've been enjoying my position. I've been in it for almost a year and a half now with the town.
Oh, wow. That sounds like a lot of moving parts.
Yeah. Love being busy.
That's great. So let's dive in a little bit to your education and career path. And can you tell us what first sparked your interest in technology and automation?
Yeah, so honestly, this came a bit later in life. So I can't say I was a super fascinated computer whiz kid, but I worked on computers and electronics in university. I started dabbling further when I got into my career out of university. So I did electrical engineering out of the University of Saskatchewan. Then once I graduated, I moved to Orangeville, Ontario, and I worked for a small conveyor company. So I worked on simple programmable relays there, and I moved departments. I think I worked with conveyors for about 2 years, and then I moved departments to the autonomous mobile robots division. So I programmed robots for a few years to carry pallets across factories around North America and Mexico. So I did that for a few years, and then the interest in computers and automation and robotics grew from there. And ultimately, the SCADA positions came up with the Town of Orangeville, and when I say it literally fell in my lap, like it got printed out and it was like, you have to apply. It's too good to be true. It was local. I was still in Orangeville. I didn't have to travel, and it was right up my realm of expertise. So I enjoy what I do right in the town. So I went for it, and now I've been here for the year and a half. So it's been a new up and coming love of automation and technology. But it stemmed from, I guess, like out of, starting in university and getting into my interests there.
Oh, wow. What an interesting trajectory. And and uncommon, I think, for a lot of our listeners in terms of like the robotics aspect.
Yeah. I think that is what we'll kind of get into. But with experiences and just like with I'm not hyper focused on one thing. And as long as I'm, involved and keeping with just trends and new up and coming things, I think I remain interested. Whereas when I was with conveyors, like it was very much of a companies were coming in and just had black box items that you could buy, and there was no innovation to conveyors. They stopped at a point. So then when you got into robotics and SCADA, like the advancement, and like then I'll never get bored. So that's the take home with my interest, is like, as long as I'm not bored, I carry on. So
yeah, let's dig into that a little bit more. So in terms of, you've given us a little sneak peek into your educational background, but if there's anything else you want to share about that, and maybe tell us a little bit more about at what point did you realize SCADA technology was the right career path for you?
Yeah, so yeah, again, graduated electrical engineering out of the University of Saskatchewan. And a little fun fact, I was the only woman to graduate out of the 40 grads in electrical
Wow.
engineering. So I like to advocate for that. And it was not something that I initially went into engineering thinking I would go into mechanical. Then I started just learning more about electronics and what could be a career path with that. So and my interests really changed early on in university, and you have to kind of go with that, and not, you know, be super pinholed in one thing because of the avenues and the doors that can open up. So once I started getting on working with conveyors, again, a company that they reached out to me, we started talking, they helped me move from Saskatchewan to Ontario, and started working with conveyors and getting into the automation realm of industries and factories, which Saskatchewan didn't really have. So once I got into that in Ontario and got into the industries here, I found them fascinating. And that's where started to see the SCADA systems. As I was putting in conveyors, we would talk to other systems of their SCADA realm and their cloud-based things. We had to start to communicate with their systems. And that's where I started to really get an interest in like the wireless communication aspects, the huge like avenues and realms that you can go into with SCADA and automation, and just again that you can find one thing. You could go into more of an IT SCADA path, you could do material handling, you do robotics, you could do a lot. So it really started to pique my interest once I started to get hands-on and into these factories. Then the Town of Orangeville job came up. Another fun story is that I had a really fun project with a health and beauty company that I ran the robots around their factory. And it was a year and a half of working on one major project with the integrator, like being the integrator myself. So once the project was over, that kind of was where I was a little lost, and I, you know, wanted to remain on that project, and I wanted to keep improving it, and I wanted to stay on it. Whereas with an integrator, you're always on different projects, which is fantastic. And I could get my hands on a lot of different projects. But with the Town of Orangeville, when they talked about that we want to upgrade the SCADA system and it's going to be a 10-year project, like it really piqued my interest, because I was like, I know that I can hone in on one project and make it what I want to make it and make it really successful. So once that was what the goal of the town was, and for this SCADA position, they hadn't had a SCADA position in a while. So we talked about what it could be, and it just really, yeah, just gave me the opportunity that I could focus on basically this brand new SCADA system that will be, you know, running smoothly from start to finish. So
Yeah.
it was great.
It sounds like a great opportunity to like make a lasting contribution, right?
Yeah.
Put your stamp on it.
Yes, yes. And be able to bring the like a smaller municipality up to the grade of like the bigger municipalities is really exciting, and just leave for future advancement is going to be like not a worry in the SCADA realm for the future. So it's been really, really interesting. And yeah, to be able to put that, because their SCADA system hasn't been upgraded in a very long time, so to be able to be the spearhead of a project like this is very rare, and then super exciting. I'm very grateful.
Oh, that's awesome. So we've touched on this a little bit, but a lot of people, you know, who don't work in some of the larger facilities or who don't get as involved with process may not fully understand what a SCADA technologist does. So aside from, you know, taking the town into to this new realm, how would you describe your role, sort of in simple terms?
Absolutely. So this is another thing that I'm more advocating with the town, because they've had SCADA for so long, but no one's known what it is. So I'll start by saying that SCADA stands for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition. So I have received this question in a council meeting, and I feel like that this whole concept isn't quite mainstreamed yet. And I'd love to just spearhead that movement, bring it into focus when it comes to automating various systems, even outside of water, wastewater. Even with the town, that's another thing that the Town of Orangeville is really focusing on advancing and setting themselves up for future success. So SCADA doesn't necessarily need to be in one place. It can talk to multiple different aspect. So we're looking into building automation and integrating that, and then it'll just be a separate part of SCADA and just having, again, multiple different entities talking to each other through various wireless communications. And that's all really new age talk, but it doesn't need to all be hardwired. And so it centralizes everything. So SCADA, as you know, in a grand scheme of things, centralizes controls and data into one easy to use place, location for control and monitoring. So as the SCADA tech, my job, I centralize and make this a relatively easy environment, user-friendly, so it can be the user interface and the design of just being able to have anybody to be able, like even new employees coming in and be able to use it from an early stage of like putting together training. So that with that, a lot of my job is also communicating how these systems and processes are used. So a lot of guides, a lot of training and SOP, the standard operating procedure writing for future use. So that's one thing often missed in technology, is that documentation around how it's used and maintained. A lot of tech, I think this is talked about in private and public, where a lot of the time developers will develop something and it, you know, really spearheads and gets out of their control, and then they don't have time for documentation because they're using it so much. So it's really been interesting to start from the ground and the documentation and putting together the standards first, and then you get processes and procedures in place and documenting it along the way. We have the luxury of having that start point to take it properly. So, and ultimately as a SCADA tech, even the procedures that have been in place forever, just putting it into words and training materials. Like we have different types of training materials for this day and age as well. We'll make videos and training videos along with documentation, along with in person. You have like all these different, it's a lot of training, a lot of talking to the users of the SCADA system to make it easy to understand. That's been a big part of the SCADA tech position.
Yeah, so it sounds like a big part of your job is integrating the humans too.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just, making it less scary. People are like, oh, no. And it's not, it's fun.
That's good. That's neat. I never really thought about it that way before. Yeah. So we talked a bit about your private sector roles and then transitioning into into the water sector. And can you share some of your first impressions of working in municipal water and wastewater automation? And was there anything that surprised you?
Yeah, so coming from the private sector, I definitely noticed the amount of structure in the municipality world, which is great. Things are organized, structured. However, that means that the time that things take to be approved and processed, that comes to fruition and is longer because of those processes in place. So that's been a change, especially coming from the private sector, a small private company where you could kind of, you're getting the project across the finish line and you can write up those standards and procedures and training documents after the fact. Whereas I think the public sector has gotten into a good routine and a good habit of getting everything put in place first, which ultimately means that you move slower, which I think is where the loss in like even the SCADA systems, once they're in place, it's hard to maintain them because they're like, okay, let's step back and move on to something else. Whereas we're starting to get into a good pattern of maintaining and keeping documents, but then you have to be patient with that process. So that's one thing that I've noticed with municipalities where or just the public sector, where things have to go to council and be approved and talked about and make the all people aware and understanding what's going on, which is open in communication. I didn't experience that in the private world per se. So I think, which is nothing that has set me back in the public sector. I think the communication and just the way of making everything known is the hard part. So that's where the public sector really focuses on that. It's great. So it's good.
Yeah, processes are in place for a reason, but that's there's always it does make it hard to stay current, right? And linking that up with our next question, with those with the water sector constantly evolving, and I'm sure SCADA technology evolving even more rapidly, how do you stay up to date with the latest SCADA advancements and industry trends?
So honestly, with being in this industry for the year and a half, like it's been a lot of getting to know the industry just from not being in it in the past. So I'm not necessarily a licensed operator, not necessarily did environmental studies before starting into my SCADA position. So it's been a lot of consulting with operators. I go on site a lot. I really just try to understand and work with operators because they're the ones that are knowledgeable. If they need this pump to turn on at this time and with this button, like that's all they're telling me to do. So we really have to work together to make that happen. As for advancements, I think it's just a matter of networking and staying with the OWWA. The Automation Committee has been fantastic for a SCADA upgrade at the infancy that it is with my project. That has been such a great way to understand where people are heading, what the trends are doing in water wastewater, and then outside of water wastewater as well, with having other integrators and engineering consultants to talk with. I think it's really important with networking as a whole. And then just the general like OWWA resources that you put out. So like the magazines and newsletters and stuff like that, you can kind of stay with water, wastewater, you can stay consistent with that. And then AI and other automation trends out there for that. That's a whole other can of worms, more or less social media and just following my favorite like network and AI people out there to see what's trending.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you'll have to share some of those with us though.
It's always moving. I feel like I'm behind, and then the people that aren't in this industry, they're like, we don't even know what you're talking about. So I'm like, there's always someone ahead, there's always someone behind. So you gotta just regulate yourself.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's really interesting. We could do a whole other podcast on that.
You really could. I'll be happy.
So, yeah, well, that's great. So we'll talk a bit more about the committee in a minute. But before we move on to some of that, to the discussion about your work with us as OWWA, if you could give one piece of advice to students or people who are early career stage interested in SCADA technology, what would you tell them?
Yeah, so whatever piques your interest in any moment, follow through until you realize that you should pursue it further or whether or not to move on to the next interest. So you don't know what you don't know. And the only way to find out if something is suitable for you is to try it yourself. So don't let others tell you what to pursue. I've had many people tell me, especially in the private industry, that I won't like traveling and you won't like working on the road and you won't like working I was told you won't like working in the public sector when I was looking to leave. So I still took those challenges on. I decided for myself and I loved working in the public sector. I did get out of the travel realm, but it lasted for 2.5 years. I traveled for 2.5 years. I got my enjoyment out of it. I had to realize that on my own. And sure, like the people at the 2-year mark would have been right. Yes, traveling and on the road got pretty tiring very quickly. But you want to experience that yourself and not look back and be like, I wish I did that or what have you. So I think just don't spearhead too much. If there's any obstacles in the way, they're there for a reason, and like take that other path if that feels right. So that's my advice in a nutshell.
Yeah, read the road signs.
Exactly.
Right along the way.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great advice. Words of wisdom.
Yeah.
So let's get back a little bit to your work with OWWA. And can you tell our listeners, how did you first hear about OWWA and what made you decide to get involved?
Yeah, so a colleague told me about OWWA and that there was an automation committee that I can apply to and get involved. So that I basically bought the membership and then applied to the automation committee in the same day. So I wanted to know that I would stay up and coming on the automation front early on in my water wastewater career. So kind of started right away and got onto the automation committee. And now it's been I just became an official member of the committee. So it's been I've attended 3 meetings. And so I think it's been a little over 6 months of me being on the committee.
Okay.
And yeah, and again, great networking opportunity, but we'll get into that.
Yeah. Yeah, let's dive into that. What specifically, I guess, appeals to you about the work that they do, the automation committee, and how have you had a chance to make a contribution so far, or is there a way you see yourself contributing as you move forward?
Absolutely. So the work that they do is just everything that I'm interested in, I guess, like talking about automation in the water wastewater. They have the right contacts. So my love for automation and getting it involved is what ultimately, made me decide, yes, I'm going to go for the automation committee. And then Orangeville with taking over their major overhaul of their SCADA system and getting its needed facelift. So I found it highly advantageous to speak with other municipalities that went through the similar upgrade. So I think that finding out other platforms and just getting into the conversation happens every meeting, which is really, really cool. I think there's other municipalities that are going through an upgrade as well. And to the point of this, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. One moment. The second question was,
how do you see yourself contributing? Yeah.
Contributions. So the contribution so far, the coolest one was the automation forum that we posted on the OWWA website. So any questions that come in for the automation, for any automation question with water, wastewater, they can ask it there. The committee will evaluate and seek out the answer. Even if the committee as a whole can't find the answer, we will seek it out, get the answer posted, and then we'll reply to the poster and they'll know that their question was answered. And then we'll post that question and answer for future reference. So I think that'll be really, really future impacting as well, because we don't know what we don't know, especially for automation. People can just go to the page and read through like, oh, that's a great question. And then they know the answer. They're learning from that. And second, we are starting up the publication subcommittee inside the automation committee. So I am a part of that as well. So you will see by the end of this year, we'll have a publication out in the pipeline.
Oh, so, amazing.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Great resources for our members.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Well, thank you for all that work that you do. That's
of course.
Yeah, and just building on that, like from your perspective, why is it important for water professionals, especially those in automation, to be involved in industry associations like OWWA?
Networking, like 100%. The take home there is networking. So finding out who's out there for future resources and relying on advice from people that have done similar projects as you or as your team, that's such an asset. People can speak to like, oh, we did exactly that, and this is how it went. This is the path that we took. And I think taking on various projects, whether they be a grand scale or small, just to know that there's a resource or someone out there that you can rely on to ask questions and say, what'd you do during this? Because we're all just trying to, especially in technology and just advancing, we're all trying to do it. So you learn from mistakes and then you share them with others. That's like the epitome of learning and resource sharing. So you won't get those contacts if you don't join something like the community of OWWA. So
yeah. Oh, fantastic. And then this next question we've already touched on, but if there's anything else you want to share about other initiatives or projects with the Automation Committee that you're particularly excited about?
Yeah, so the subcommittee of the publications, it's me and 2 others that are new to the committee. So it's been really nice to talk with those that, are just starting out and getting into it. So we're going to learn about the topic that we're really seeking out for 2025 is asset management. And that's another huge project that Orangeville is taking on, separate to SCADA. but it's something that I can be a little bit of a, like, here I put out a publication about asset management. Here's a reference for you and what others are doing and what we've found, and it's going to be more of a research based article. And so I am really excited about that one and learning more about asset management, which we are looking to implement. And again, find your bare bones, set your standards, and do the groundwork first, and then you can roll it out properly. So yeah, good.
Oh, that's an interesting tie-in, right? When it sort of goes across our.
Crazy when that happens. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, neat. Well, I look forward to seeing that. And last but not least, have you had a chance to attend any OWWA events yet?
Not yet. So my first one will be the trade show at Blue Mountain in May. So I'm excited for that one. I already know a lot of like the contacts and the community of OWWA to kind of meet up there, and it'll be good to put face to the names. And then just, I think any conference that I can attend for how valuable I see networking, I think is the conference that I would want to go to. So instead of like spearheading which ones to go to, just as many as I possibly can. And so we'll start with Blue Mountain and go from there.
Well, that'll be great because this podcast will definitely be out before conference. So I invite all of our listeners to track you down on site and introduce themselves.
Amazing. Yes.
Yeah. Let's grow that network.
Yes.
Okay, now we have some time for some fun questions. And so let's dive in. What's a fun or unexpected part of working in SCADA that most people wouldn't know about?
Okay, so fun fact is that it actually involves a lot of IT. So information technology aspects around the background, and to make a successful SCADA system, you need a bit of an IT background. So right now I'm looking to like hone in on those skills and advance those skills, but it's been a lot of referencing or collaborating with the IT department to know what the architecture and background is. It's not just, the interface, we're talking the background. So I think the take home of like a SCADA tech would be that even for those venturing into computer science, don't knock that SCADA world out and off as a career option, because I haven't really touched on IT before this, and now I'm started like I could be, this could be a whole new career path if I wanted it to. It's a whole other world. So that's been fun, taking on more IT and programming stuff.
Okay. I don't know that a lot of people would say that. So that is unique for sure. Interesting. If you could invent a brand new automation tool for the water industry, what would it do?
So I think just to seamlessly bring everything together into one interface and user space would be my ultimate automation tool. I don't think it's far out. I think that will exist one day and be as easy to use as things get, like more and more, as technology advances, the easier they become. So I don't think that that'll be impossible, but that is, if I like on a grand scheme of things, that is what I'm trying to do with the SCADA upgrade for the town, like wrap everything into one nice little box with a bow on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's neat. Yeah, definitely. Even as I reflect on my time in the water industry, we've come so far in terms of
so I think
integration.
It's there. Yeah, there will be challenges. There will be, and even with things that we've found, like we can't talk to that device yet, but in a few years we'll upgrade it and we will be able to talk to it. It'll be things like that where it'll take a few years to get there, but it's not too far.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting. What's been your most memorable or funny moment on the job so far?
So this one was hard to pinpoint my specific moments, but I think ultimately, like the colleagues and the crew that I work with, we have so much fun every day. And I think it's really important to have fun and laugh in the day-to-day operations. So a few examples, like we got iPads for all the operators, and they all came in like black cases, like really, robust cases for us being on site. And so I'm like, let's put like stickers on them and be able to like identify, whose iPad is whose. So I bought a bunch of fun work inspired stickers. So that's been fun. And then our sites, like our well or our operations center where water kind of works out of, is one site, and then wastewater is another. So to be able to show and just be on site at both areas of like my office is at Op Center, but I go down to wastewater for Wastewater Wednesdays. So every single Wednesday, wastewater, I'm down there. They know that I'm there. They can save their SCADA questions for then. But it kind of just allows for that like unity of that water wastewater, because I mean, what I'm finding with being relatively new is that it's separate, but at the same time they're merged. So with SCADA, particularly, we're merging them. I want to stay like as fluent as I can with the two. So yeah, Wastewater Wednesdays have been a lot of fun. So just, yeah, I think coming into the office and working with the crew is the fun part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the people part is important, and it often gets overlooked, right? So.
It does. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Tell our listeners, if you weren't in SCADA and automation, what career do you think you'd be doing instead?
Yeah, so I touched on like I moonlight at Orange Theory as a coach. So I think if I wasn't doing automation and tech, and if I wasn't as involved here, I would do personal training and do more in-depth coaching. Or with my MBA, I'd maybe start like a gym or something. It's such a saturated market, so I don't think that'll be my side business that I want to start. But the fitness and health aspect of that industry is really interesting to me. I'd probably go in that realm, but as much as for where I'm at now, I try to like keep it as a hobby. It's fun.
Okay. Well, I'm still in the market for a triathlon coach, so let me know if you do make that decision. I could use all the help I can get.
Amazing. That's such a good goal.
Yeah, it's fun. If you could attend any water or technology conference in the world, aside from ours, of course, where would you go and why?
Well, so when I, again, new to the industry, I was looking up, there's the Western Canadian Water Conference in 2026. So that's being held in Regina, Saskatchewan. So that would be nice to visit home and attend and network and see what they do in the West. I think ultimately with being with AWWA, we get a glimpse of what the states are doing. We can see and we can collaborate with that entity and be able to see what they're doing. But to venture off, like Canada's a huge place. So I'm sure the West is doing some different stuff. So I don't know, I might put a bug in my boss's ear and try to get out there in 2026.
Oh, that's a great idea. And I do hear that is a great conference as well.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, for sure. And this is our last question before we wrap up, but I'll give you one last chance to inform our listeners about what's one misconception people have about SCADA that you wish you could clear up.
Yeah, so I think I'll loop this back to my discussion around the IT knowledge that's a real asset with SCADA development and SCADA knowledge. So there's a misconception around the cybersecurity of SCADA systems. So it is considered, it's separate from the network typically. It's tied off, it's hardwired, and they're, running, but they can still be vulnerable. And there's still that false sense of security because of the proprietary protocols and limited public information. It does not mean that SCADA systems are safe from the cyber harm. So I think it's important to, when people are developing these new systems, that cybersecurity needs to be at the forefront rather than that later thought, after the fact, or hearing these stories of what, other municipalities may have happened to them. I think it's good to focus on that at first and to highlight it as we enter the new age of SCADA and train for that future of IT and SCADA professionals and what that could merge to be. So that's it.
Wow, it sounds like a huge challenge to take on, but
it's major, but it's fun and it keeps me busy. So it's definitely not something that I think people will, say, oh, like SCADA and an upgrade. That's, 2 words. That's like an easy project. It can be a whole realm. It can go and be a monster of itself.
Yeah, but still rewarding.
Still so fun, so rewarding.
Awesome. Well, Courtney, I know I learned a lot, and it's going to take me a little while to digest everything you shared there. That was really informative and so great to get to know you a little bit better. Mm-hmm. And we'll have to have you back on again in a couple of years and learn about how, Orangeville is leading the way with this
Absolutely.
new
Yes.
system.
I'm happy to share, happy to have these conversations, all things SCADA, all things automation. And then again, I learned from the OWWA community as I, talk and have these information sessions. So I'm really happy that you had me on. And thanks for letting me talk all things SCADA.
No, thank you. And thanks for your time. And I want to remind our listeners, if you're not registered yet for the annual conference and trade show, that's still open on the website at owwa.ca. And if you are going to be there, make sure you keep an eye out for Courtney and make sure you say hi. And yeah, thanks again. And thanks for being an active volunteer with OWWA and the Automation Committee. And I can't wait to meet up with you in person at Blue Mountain.
Absolutely. Thank you. I look forward to meeting you and all the others. Amazing.
Awesome. Okay. Have a great day, Courtney.
Okay. You too. Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.